So, you're a Turkish medical technology firm, and you've got your eyes set on the United Kingdom. Smart move. But how do you actually make it happen? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down today. A clear, straightforward roadmap to get you from Turkey to successful entry into the UK market. Let's dive right in.
First things first, let's just take a moment to appreciate the size of the opportunity here. We're talking about a UK health tech industry with an annual turnover of £27.6 billion. That is huge. It's one of the most advanced markets in the world, and it is hungry for innovation. But to get a piece of that pie, you're going to need a really solid strategy.
And here's that strategy. We've broken it down into 4 key stages. We'll start with the absolute essential, regulatory compliance. That's your gateway in. Then we'll talk about the pitch and how to sell to the NHS. After that, we'll get into the subtleties of British business culture, which is key for building relationships. And finally, we'll wrap it all up into a strategy to make you a truly trusted partner. Okay, let's start at the very beginning. This is the non-negotiable part, the gateway of regulatory compliance. Before a single one of your products can be sold, you have to meet the UK's legal standards. And believe me, this isn't just paperwork. It's the entire foundation of your entry into the market. The big name you need to know here is the MHRA, the Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency. You can think of them as the gatekeeper. Every single medical device, everything from a simple bandage to a complex surgical robot, has to be on their official register before you can sell it in England, Scotland, or Wales. No exceptions. Now listen up, because for any Turkish firm, this part is absolutely critical. You are legally required to appoint what's called a UK Responsible Person, or UKRP. This isn't just an agent or a contact. It's a legal entity based right there in the UK that officially represents you to the MHRA. Choosing the right one isn't just a box to tick. It's one of the most important decisions you'll make at the start. And this UKRP has some serious, legally binding duties. They're the ones handling your actual device registration, making sure all your technical files are correct, and keeping copies ready for inspection at a moment's notice. If there's ever a safety issue or a recall, they're the ones on the front line. So you see, it's a very active partnership, not just a name on a form.
So what does this process actually look like? Well, it all starts with appointing your UKRP. Then you make sure your device has the right conformity mark. After that, your UKRP gets it registered online. But here's the really important detail. This is a notification process. The MHRA isn't reassessing your entire product. They're simply confirming that you've done all the necessary work to prove it's safe and compliant.
Now this is where things get interesting, the whole dual marking situation. For long-term access to the UK market, you're going to need the UKCA mark. But here's the good news. To make the transition after Brexit a bit smoother, Great Britain is still accepting the EU CE mark until at least 2028. For Turkish companies that already have CE certification, this is a critical window of opportunity.
All right, so you've made it through the regulatory gateway. You're officially in. Now for the main event. How do you actually sell your product? Well, in the UK, that almost always means selling to the National Health Service, the NHS, and knowing how to pitch to them is everything.
This quote right here tells you so much about the NHS. You have to understand that for them, sustainability isn't just some nice idea. It's a core, non-negotiable part of their identity. They were the very first health system in the world to make a net zero commitment, and that fact shapes every single purchasing decision they make.
And the scale of this ambition is just massive. They're aiming to get their own emissions to net zero by 2040. But look at that second goal. For 2045, that carbon footprint plus includes their entire supply chain, all 80,000 suppliers. And here's the key takeaway for you. That means your company's carbon footprint is now their carbon footprint.
And they have laid out a very clear, non-negotiable roadmap for this. Just look at that first milestone date, April 2024. That's already happened. This isn't coming, it's here. For any new contract right now, you must have a carbon reduction plan. It's a deal breaker. By 2027, you'll need to report all your global emissions, and by 2028, they'll be looking at the carbon footprint of every single product.
And this isn't just about ticking a compliance box, it's about winning the business. Every single tender from the NHS now dedicates a minimum of 10% of the total score to net zero and social value. What that means is your sustainability reports, your carbon reduction plan, your ethical practices, all of that is being scored right alongside your product's performance and its price.
Okay, so you've got your regulatory approval, and your pitch is perfectly aligned with the NHS's values. The final piece of the puzzle is turning a simple transaction into a real long-term partnership. And that means you have to understand the nuances of British business culture.
Let's just quickly cover the basics so you make a great first impression. First, punctuality is a really big deal. Being on time is the baseline for showing respect. Greetings are usually formal at first, a firm handshake, using titles like Mr. or Doctor. Communication is polite, it's diplomatic. They value an evidence-based approach, not high-pressure sales tactics. And meetings are usually very structured, so expect an agenda and be prepared to stick to it. Now here's a classic example of that indirect communication style. If someone in a meeting says, "That's an interesting perspective," well, in some places that's just a simple observation. But in Britain, it can often be a very polite way of saying, "I think you're completely wrong." Learning to kind of read between the lines is so important for building trust.
So let's pull all of this together. It's the combination of that regulatory knowledge, your alignment with the NHS, and that cultural understanding that takes you from being just another supplier to becoming a truly trusted partner.
So, your winning strategy really comes down to these three pillars. Think of them as the legs of a stool. You need all three for it to be stable. First, master the regulations. That's your ticket to the game. Second, align with NHS values, especially on sustainability. That's your competitive edge. And third, build cultural trust. That's the glue that holds profitable, long-term partnerships together.
And really, when you boil it all down, success in the UK market comes down to this one question. A supplier just ships a box and sends an invoice. A trusted partner, on the other hand, understands the rules, shares the values of their customer, and invests in the relationship to help solve real problems. That is the strategic choice that will define your success in the UK.